You ever wonder why you can, I don't know, remember every single word to a song from 20 years ago, but you can't for the life of you remember why you just walked into the kitchen? Yeah, memory is it's a strange and fascinating thing. So today, we're going to unpack the science behind it. And more importantly, we're going to show you how you can actually take control of it. We're going to look at the hardware, the software, and even the user manual for your brain. But first, how about a quick challenge? Just for fun, I'm going to give you, say, 10 seconds to look at the items on your screen. Really try to lock them in. Ready? Go. We've got a key, a spoon, an apple, a book, and a pencil. Okay, time's up. All right, look away from the screen for a second. How many of those did you get? Maybe you got all 5, maybe just a couple. Either way, this little test shows us something really important. Improving our memory isn't just about trying harder. It's about understanding the system that we're working with, and honestly, the best way to think about that system is like a computer. It's got 3 key parts: its hardware, its software, and its user manual. Okay, so let's start with something we've all experienced: muscle memory. What scientists call procedural memory. Think about a veteran operating room nurse. After years and years, she can just anticipate what a surgeon needs, right? She's passing the right instrument at the perfect time without even thinking about it. That's our brain on autopilot. It's our memory at its absolute most efficient, built from tons of repetition, until a really complex task becomes as automatic as, say, tying your shoes. Now that autopilot mode is incredible, but it and pretty much every other memory you have depends on the physical health of your brain itself. This is what we're going to call the hardware. And just like any high-performance machine, our hardware needs the right fuel to run at its best. I mean, you can't run the latest software on a busted motherboard, and you definitely can't build strong memories with poor nutrition. So let's talk about one specific kind of fuel, a nutrient called lutein. It's a type of pigment found in plants, a carotenoid. But here's the really wild part. Lutein preferentially accumulates in the human brain. Now, what that means is our brain doesn't just sort of passively absorb it. No, it actively seeks it out and hangs onto it for dear life. And check this out. This chart shows just how much the brain loves lutein. So in babies, lutein only makes up about 12% of the carotenoids they get from their diet. But when you actually look at their brain tissue, it accounts for a massive 60% of the total carotenoids. That's no accident, folks. The brain is literally concentrating lutein, which tells us it must be playing some kind of super important role in how it develops and functions. So the main point here is you can actually support your brain's hardware through what you eat, and it's not even that complicated. Just look at these numbers. A single cup of cooked spinach or kale gives you a huge dose of lutein, and even everyday stuff like peas, broccoli, and corn are fantastic sources. So taking care of your hardware, that is step number 1, the absolute foundation. Okay, so we've talked about the hardware, but what about the programs it's running? This is what we can think of as our cognitive software, all the processes and strategies our brain uses to encode, store, and then pull up information. And here's the best part. Unlike the hardware you were born with, this software can be upgraded. To really see what I mean, let's compare 2 high-stakes jobs. On one hand, you've got the OR nurse we talked about. She learns mostly through tons of experience and repetition. On the other hand, you have a pilot. A pilot uses a really structured system. They drill specific memory items for emergencies over and over until they're totally automatic. For everything else, they have a quick reference handbook. See, they don't leave memory to chance. They train it with a deliberate system. And that is the key takeaway right here. Your brain's default approach to memory isn't set in stone. You can absolutely shift from the nurse's model of kind of accidental learning to the pilot's model of intentional, focused training. You can literally install better memory software just through practice. Scientists have actually tested this. In one study, they trained people using a pretty simple visual memory task. So subjects would see 2 faces, they'd have to hold them in their memory for just 3 seconds, and then say if a third face matched one of the first 2. And they just did this again and again and again for 10 days. Okay, but this is where it gets really, really cool. Of course, people got better at remembering the faces they were trained on. I mean, that's the first bar, no surprise there. But look at the next 2. Their memory also got way better for a new set of faces they'd never seen before. And even crazier, their memory for pictures of houses also improved. This is what's called the transfer effect. They didn't just get better at one little task, they actually upgraded the underlying cognitive software for visual memory itself. How cool is that? So, we've got our hardware and our software. But even the best computer in the world is pretty useless if you don't know how to use it, right? And that brings us to the final piece of our puzzle, the user's guide. These are the active techniques, the conscious strategies we can learn to use our memory with real skill and precision. The ancient Greeks and Romans actually had a name for this, the art of memory. I mean, think about it. Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle pointed out this fundamental thing about memory, association. Our minds don't just store information in these neat, isolated folders. Nope, they build this huge, interconnected web. When you think of milk, your brain might jump to white, which might lead to cloud, and so on. Now, this isn't a flaw in the system, it's a feature we can totally harness. So this art of mnemonics, it's all built on this idea of creating really powerful, intentional connections. And it usually relies on a few core principles. Turning abstract stuff into vivid pictures, putting things in a logical order, creating that chain of association we talked about, using bizarre or funny or emotional images to make things stick, and of course, breaking big chunks of information down into smaller, manageable sets. Now, probably one of the most powerful and famous of all these techniques is the method of Loci, also known as the mind palace. I know it sounds like something straight out of a detective show, right? But it's an incredibly practical tool that, believe it or not, anyone can learn, like right now. Here's how it works. First, you just pick a place you know inside and out, like your own house. Then, you map out a very specific path through it, say from the front door to the living room sofa to the kitchen table. Now, to remember a list of things, you mentally place each item at one of those locations, creating a really vivid, maybe even ridiculous image in your mind. To recall the list, all you have to do is take a mental walk along your path and just see what you left there. So, there you have it. Building a better memory isn't some kind of magic trick. It's really a systematic process. It's about maintaining your physical hardware with good nutrition. It's about upgrading your cognitive software through deliberate, focused practice. And it's about actually learning to read your user's guide by applying these powerful techniques like the Mind Palace. But at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to become a human encyclopedia. As one OR nurse put it so well, it's not about memorizing everything. It's about knowing what matters most and what to do when everything goes wrong. It's about turning your memory from this passive filing cabinet into an active, strategic tool that you can use. And maybe the most empowering idea of all is this: your memory is not some fixed trait that you were just born with. Not at all. It is a skill that can be developed, a system that can be optimized, and a capacity that can literally grow throughout your entire life. So I guess the only question left is, what will you train it to do?